the guiding hand of natural selection in our world is quite firmly holding a fork. Not only does a fork allow us to explore our world, but it also defines how we use our world.
We're making choices, food choices all the time, but we're not making really good food choices with fish.
The distribution of fish today is crazy efficient. The question is, how are we sourcing this, and how do we do it in a way that brings some kind of true sustainability to the future?
We're only willing to eat a certain number of species: cod, tuna, swordfish, shrimp. And so what we've done is we've created an entire irrational economy that's based on demand rather than what the oceans can sustainably supply.
People say these are the 4 or 5 different species of seafood that we like to eat. This is when we want to eat them. And there's a lot of disregard for seasonality. There's a lot of disregard for sustainability, for what our oceans can provide us. And that's not working anymore.
When you think of seafood, I think a lot of Americans think of it as the most local food. But actually, seafood is like the least local food Americans are likely to come across. I mean, a huge percent, anywhere from 85 to 91% of our seafood in any given year is coming to us from abroad.
I was at a restaurant in Gloucester, Mass, and we were eating haddock, and I saw the processing factory right across over there, and I knew the auction was right down the road, and the haddock had come fished off the Grand Banks, landed in Gloucester, went on a container, went to China, came back to Gloucester, and was sitting there on my plate in the restaurant across the street from almost where it was caught.
I think things that are worth doing are going to be hard. There's no easy button to doing something that you love and doing it right. Dock to Dish isn't a brand, it's a way of life. It's going back to basics. Not only should we conserve this environment for the sake of the environment itself, but also for the sake of the livelihoods of the people who depend upon it. Hey, Jeff? Yeah. That is awesome. So these are warty California sea cucumbers. I'm gonna buy some from you, if you can sell any. $4.50 a pound.
Yeah.
Well, then I can take 50 pounds. Yeah. Smile.
Smiling.
It's like, I'm smiling, what do you want?
We're then going to sort of export and look at how this community faces outward. Local fisheries really are part of a global industry, so we need to understand how that translates out. We're only willing to take portions that are exactly 7 ounces or exactly 6 ounces, and so we end up demanding fish of a very specific size. And yet, when a trawler goes out and back in that, comes fish this big, comes fish this big, and they all have different prices because we're only willing to pay so much for each one. And if we were, as chef community, just to shift our preferences for seafood to be more variable, not only species, but also form, that would revolutionize a huge sector of the economy that is currently a roadblock. So, a lot of the story that we've heard today has been about better utilization of existing products to gain better community resource, to gain better market resource, all of that. People don't really care what you know about until they know what you care about. And to me, sustainability is ultimately described by being a good neighbor.
It kind of shows you where we're at as a country in regards to seafood. I mean, we eat about 15 pounds of seafood per person per year. That's minuscule compared to the real fish-eating countries of the world. If you look at China, Japan, Korea, we're talking 30, 35, 40 pounds of seafood per person per year. So, of course, we don't have an appreciation for what's really good. It's a sidebar thing, and we don't really have an emotional connection to it.
Dock to Dish operates as a restaurant-supported fishery, an RSF. which is a membership-based program. So that's where it differs greatly from anybody else buying fish on the docks and handing it over to a chef. And I applaud all of those people. But when it comes right down to it, you're going to have chefs demanding certain things from the fishermen. And then the system breaks apart again. So what's really great about Dock to Dish and the restaurant-supported fishery movement, and why it's considered more of an evolution than just another iteration, is that we have members. They pay in advance. They're committed to this concept of local, sustainable fish. Whatever comes in the last 24 hours is what they're getting. And they don't have a choice. It's not demand-based, it's supply-based. And that's why it's so different. Okay. So if you want to keep my number and call me again, I'm going to get like an interview profile of you up on the website.
All right.
Shit like that.
Yeah, cool.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And as soon as those urchins are good, let me know.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
You know, this El Nino might destroy them for years.
I know. Thanks so
Yeah,
much. I
thanks.
appreciate it.
Good. We all good on the sofa? I feel like it's a collective awakening. We have been so far in depleting the planet and being disrespectful and being greedy. And today we are at a crossroad. It's not too late to change things.
Fire one sea trout.
Yes.
The fishermen are local. Whatever they catch, they bring it to the restaurant and we use it. And we are helping those fishermen to have a job and be financially sustainable as well.
The vision behind Dock to Dish was, I had grown up on same-day source seafood. Having fish that we caught that day was dinner that night. I was kind of trying to figure out a puzzle of how would you reconnect our communities, restaurants, and our neighbors, our friends with our local fisheries and fishermen. It was the community-supported agriculture movement is where I really was able to see the blueprint of how community-supported fisheries could translate. Our whole premise is built on transparency and on a know your fisherman culture, right? So that you really should be entitled to know who caught your seafood. For our next generation, I want to go back a few generations and see how this system looked before it broke.
The story of the fish. What we're trying to do is put an emphasis on the fact that this fish was alive and was taken out of the ocean, and it was taken in such a way that was sustainable and responsible and understand all of the people that it affects along the way. Fish are the last wild product. They're the last wild harvestable animal that's out there. Everything else is cultivated. With our program, what's really great is because of the subscription-based model, because the chefs are not demanding certain products, they're looking to buy into this lifestyle, to buy into an investment made in these fishermen and their livelihood and the stability of that livelihood. It's something that no one is used to hearing. It's not something that's often discussed, how your food gets to you, who got you your food. I think it really changes people's appreciation for the food on their plate, and by extension almost changes the way things taste, because you actually have a history behind this plate of food in front of you. There's meaning to it.
what I like to think the role of chefs play in this space, and what Dr. Dish feeds into so nicely, is that it's not just about utilizing the whole fish, but really creating a cuisine around the whole fish, and a culture around the whole fish. What I find interesting about the model of utilizing chefs in restaurants as examples of what's possible is because of the utilization of not just particular species, but of looking at an entire ecology, a local ecology, and figuring out here's what we're handed, and now how do we create a pattern of eating that is so delicious that it becomes inculcated into the everyday traditions and mores and habits of people in a particular region, place, culture.
We got a DB specialty.
Yes, baby.
Spanish mackerel.
Okay, here we go.
Mackerel Espanol, Jose. These are actually from the Beckwith brothers in Montauk. If you're bringing fish to Dan Barber, you better let them know who caught it.
We need to get back to this idea of not so much as what do we want for lunch and dinner, or what do we want our diets to be, and instead ask, what does the landscape provide? And this model is a way of doing that for the ocean. Okay, they're going on the menu tonight.
And
are you staying for dinner? That's the question.
You don't have to ask me twice. Yeah, I'll be here.
We tend to associate deliciousness and enjoyment of food with some kind of gluttony, and therefore some kind of negative impact on the environment, when actually the opposite is true if it's done with intelligent design. You as an eater don't have a choice. This is what you're being handed. And as long as there's culinary craft involved, and it's a key component, gluttony is good in the pursuit of this kind of balance. It starts up high, and up high is in a white tablecloth restaurant. That's where the power of Dr. Dish comes in, is because you're ultimately delivering something delicious in the hands of the people that can translate that through the culinary technique and craft to make it so. So I do believe that, ultimately these ideas end up trickling down. It just takes a while.
There's passion in this. There's passion when you work with people who care about what they do. I get that on the side of the fishermen. The same thing applies to chefs. They have an art form. Local is an important word for me. For me, what it means is community. It's contemplative. It's a great time of the morning to be on the road. It's very meditative for me.
Wow.
The meat is like really orange.
Right.
It's got these crazy black lines on it. It's really beautiful.
This is exciting. We've never worked with this before. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Kind of like, that's usually bycatch, so that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's a nice
How that
piece.
goes.
Let's get to it.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about using Dr. Dish at Ennaka because the whole philosophy behind kaiseki is to feature as many local ingredients as possible to be very representative of our area. And I've been looking for so long to find real fish that are from California, and it's been very hard to source these ingredients because a lot of the fish that are caught don't end up in the markets that are available to us. The meat is so fresh, Sarah.
Good.
Yes, because it's just really firm, really clean, really shiny.
The barrier for a lot of the underutilized species was that people just weren't familiar with them. They didn't know how to cook them. They didn't, you know, it was a challenge that they weren't going to overcome on their own. The chefs have removed that ceiling and suddenly made it not only like, you know, they're abundant fish, they're local fish, they're really sustainable, but now they're cool. Now it's cool to have sea robin, sea bream, scup porgy, bluefish, a lot of these different species that historically the local community would not have necessarily have been cooking with or accepting.
What we're doing here is sort of ingredient based, and it makes my job so much easier when I'm getting something really amazingly pristine. And it kind of gets the juices flowing when you're getting things that honestly you don't get a chance to see all the time. The quality is top notch, you know, because again, it's coming out of the water on a Thursday and it's hitting us on Friday morning.
They're used to just at night ordering off a sheet, and the next day whatever they want is delivered. So for us, rolling into a lot of these kitchens with these surprise loads of whatever came off the dock that day, it's a throwback to the way kind of a pre-industrialized era or an old European way of sourcing and how restaurants operate.
So we got two beautiful yellows. That's nice. Wow. This will be an adventure. From what I understand, like these strips right here.
Those are the 2 feet.
Yeah, this is.
You want to remove them.
Yeah, but that's what you want to eat too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
From what I understand, like that's really good.
Okay. Awesome.
But you
That's
use a
beautiful.
blunt, like a blunt object to get under them.
So why not use an oyster knife?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Like that. This is like Frank has a technique. It's like a Japanese technique.
No way.
That we do it for all the fish that we use for sashimi because it doesn't damage the flesh at all. You know, like when you scale the.
It bruises it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you do it this way, you just take it all off in strips. Then you leave the.
No way.
You leave the skin that's under the scales on the fish.
Right.
And then you can put the fish away for the night, and it's still, you know, the flesh is still protected by the skin,
Right.
but the scales are gone.
So you're ready to go
Yeah.
the next morning.
Yeah, and this works with a lot of different fish. So why don't we can make a sashimi with this guy.
Yeah.
I'll show you how we do it. This is Espelette chili, like the French chili pepper. Not spicy, but really sweet. So we have a couple of different varieties of tomatoes that we use in this dish. These are little baby currant tomatoes.
You can tell when there's
The texture is so good.
Here we are at Amber Waves Farm, which is the pickup location for community supported agriculture members and community supported fishery members. Hey Danielle.
Hey Sean.
How are you? Good, great to see you. We got a couple of great gifts for you today. We got Captain Strausser's Mahi Mahi.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and then your farm basket is filled with all kinds of good stuff. You got garlic scapes, scallions. The girls filled your box with really good stuff, so.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sean.
Good stuff. Enjoy. Bon appetit.
Bye-bye.
On a Cape Seafood? Cape Seafood and Provisions. All right, so this is the future home of Cape Seafood and Provisions. Doesn't look like much right now, but we're getting there. We're working on it. Right here, there'll be a big 12-foot case, which is where all of the fillets and stuff will be.
What you've really done here is put the horse back in front of the cart because you've created a true supply-based system, which is how wild seafood should really
find its way to market.
It's really great to disrupt a system that clearly doesn't work and doesn't provide us the highest quality, the best, freshest, most amazing seafood.
Wild U.S. seafood is the healthiest protein you're going to source on the planet. It's the last wild food that we eat.
I know when I cut into fish that I just pulled it off the boat that was just caught that afternoon, there's a sheen to that fillet.
You know, that kind of stuff, it's exciting. It's like that variance is what makes, you know, wild fish special.
For me, when you source from one of these small boats, from one of these guys who's using a single hook on a single line, I mean, that's a given that that's the more sustainable option.
And you're supporting and keeping those communities alive.
The food system that we have may not be the best one, and that, you know, and getting more local and getting smaller and knowing exactly where your food comes from is something that people are willing to put a value on. And I think that number is growing.
I don't think it's really a question of why I do this. It's a question of why more people don't do this.